If I had given you $10,000 when I first met you, and I devoutly wish I had, I would have millions today.
If you joined the partnership when we started in 1956, and when we disbanded it in '69, reinvested the proceeds in Berkshire, which was somewhat of a continuation, I think you'd have a little over 15 million now.
From $10,000?
Right.
From $10,000 to 15 million?
Something like that, yeah.
That's a pretty good record.
It's okay, but that doesn't tell you anything about tomorrow.
Well, let's talk about tomorrow. Could anyone do the same thing you did starting today?
If they didn't try and do too much the first week, yeah.
Right. But when I spoke with him last fall in his office in Omaha, he very characteristically made his investment style seem so perfectly simple.
The first rule in investment is don't lose. And the second rule in investment is don't forget the first rule, and that's all the rules there are. I mean, if you buy things for far below what they're worth, and you buy a group of them, you basically don't lose money.
Warren, what do you consider the most important quality for an investment manager?
It's a temperamental quality, not an intellectual quality. You don't need tons of IQ in this business. I mean, you have to have enough IQ to get from here to downtown Omaha, but you do not have to be able to play three-dimensional chess or be in the top leagues in terms of bridge playing or something of the sort. You need a stable personality. You need a temperament that neither derives great pleasure from being with the crowd or against the crowd, because this is not a business where you take polls. It's a business where you think. And Ben Graham would say that you're not right or wrong because 1,000 people agree with you, and you're not right or wrong because 1,000 people disagree with you. You're right because your facts and your reasoning are right. In the securities business, you literally every day have thousands of the major American corporations offered to you at a price, and a price that changes daily. And you don't have to make any decisions. You have to make, nothing is forced upon you. So there are no called strikes in the business. The pitcher just stands there and throws balls at you. And if you're playing real baseball and it's between the knees and the shoulders, you either swing or you get a strike called on you. If you get too many called on you, you're out. In the securities business, you sit there and they throw U.S. Steel at 25 and they throw General Motors at 68, and you don't have to swing at any of them. They may be wonderful pitches to swing at, but if you don't know enough, you don't have to swing. And you can sit there and watch thousands of pitches, and finally you get one right there where you want it, something that you understand, and then you swing. And
so you might not swing for 6 months.
You might not swing for 2 years.
Isn't that boring?
It would bore most people, and certainly boredom is a problem with most professional money managers. If they try to sit out an inning or two, not only do they get somewhat antsy, but their clients start yelling, "Swing, you bum," from the stands, and that's very tough for people to do.
Warren, what do you do that's different than 90% of the money managers who are in the market?
Certainly, most of the professional investors focus on what the stock is likely to do in the next year or two, and they have all kinds of arcane methods of approaching that, but they do not really think of themselves as owning a piece of a business. The real test of whether you're investing from a value standpoint or not is whether you care whether the stock market is open tomorrow. If you're making a good investment in a security, it shouldn't bother you if they close down the stock market for 5 years. All the ticker tells me is the price. Yeah. And I can look at the price occasionally to see whether the price is outlandishly cheap or outlandishly high. But prices don't tell me anything about a business. Business figures themselves tell me something about a business, but the price of a stock doesn't tell me anything about a business. I would rather value a stock or a business first and not even know the price, so that I'm not influenced by the price in establishing my valuation, and then look at the price later to see whether it's way out of line with what my value is.
Warren, you say you like to buy businesses. How do you know what a company is worth?
I look for a business where I think I know what, in a general way, is going to happen. If you buy a bond, you know exactly what's going to happen. If it's assuming it's a good bond, a U.S. government bond, if it says 9% coupons, you know what the 9% coupons are going to be for maybe 30 years if it's a 30-year bond. Now, when you buy a business, you're buying something with coupons on it too, except the only problem is they don't print in the amount, and it's my job to print in the amount on the coupon. And some companies I feel capable of doing that with, and others I don't have the faintest idea.
You know what the academics say. They say the market is efficient and no one can beat it. But you have.
And a number of other people that followed Ben Graham's principles have.
Right.
In fact, everyone that I personally know that has really stuck with the Ben Graham principles over 20 years or more has done appreciably better than the market.
Well, what about all the learned business schools that say you can't beat the market?
Well, then they aren't so learned.
But you've seen some of these papers.
I've seen the papers, but I've seen some other people's tax returns.
You have been talking this philosophy for years. It's no secret.
It's no secret.
Why doesn't everybody do it?
Well, it requires patience, which a lot of people don't have. And people would much rather be promised that they're going to win a lottery ticket next week than that they're going to get rich slowly. Gus Levy used to say that he was long-term greedy, not short-term greedy. And if you're short-term greedy, you probably won't get a very good long-term result.
You've said they could close the New York Stock Exchange for 2 years and you wouldn't care. Can you explain that?
We own parts of businesses when we own stocks. And the New York Stock Exchange being open has nothing to do whether the Washington Post is getting more valuable over a 5 or 10-year period. And what we want to do is be right on the business. If we're right on the business, the market will take care of itself. And if the stock exchange closes on Saturday and Sunday, and I don't break out in hives, so if it closes for a couple of years and the business does well, we'll do very well.
I've noticed in your annual report, you say that if you're in a poker game for 30 minutes and you don't know who the patsy is, you're the patsy.
You've got it.
How do you apply that to the market or to investing?
In the market, if you think the market knows more about what your business is, in other words, if your stock goes down 10% and that upsets you, it obviously means that you think the market knows more about the company than you do. And in that case, you're the patsy. If it goes down 10% and you want to buy more because you know the business is worth just as much as when you bought it before, or perhaps a little bit more with the passage of time, so you buy more, they're the patsy.
Where do you get these aphorisms that you've gotten so well known for?
Well, I know, they're about the limit of my intellectual capacity, so I have to work with one sentence.
Don't you find Omaha a little bit off the beaten track for the investment world?
Well, believe it or not, we get mail here, and we get periodicals, and we get all the facts needed to make decisions. And unlike Wall Street, you'll notice we don't have 50 people coming up and whispering in our ear that we should be doing this or that this afternoon.
You appreciate the lack of stimulation here?
I like the lack of stimulation. We get facts, not stimulation here.
How can you stay away from Wall Street?
Well, if I were on Wall Street, I'd probably be a lot poorer. You get overstimulated in Wall Street, and you hear lots of things, and you may shorten your focus, and a short focus is not conducive to long profits. And here I can just focus on what businesses are worth, and I don't need to be in Washington to figure out what the Washington Post newspaper is worth, and I don't need to be in New York to figure out what some other company is worth. It's an intellectual process. Well, and the less static there is in that intellectual process, really the better off you are.
What is the intellectual process?
The intellectual process is defining your area of competence in valuing businesses, and then within that area of competence, finding whatever sells at the cheapest price in relation to value. And there are all kinds of things I'm not competent to value, but there are a few that I am competent to value.
Have you ever bought a technology company?
No, I really haven't.
In 30 years of investing, not one?
I haven't understood any of them.
So you haven't ever owned, for example, IBM?
Never owned IBM. Marvelous company. I mean, a sensational company, but I haven't owned IBM.
And so here is this technological revolution going on, and you're not going to be a participant.
Gone right past me.
Is that all right with you?
It's okay with me. I don't have to make money in every game. I mean, I don't know what cocoa beans are going to do. There are all kinds of things I don't know about, and that may be too bad, but why should I know all about them? I haven't worked that hard on them.
Warren, your approach seems so simple. Why doesn't everybody do it?
Well, I think partly because it is so simple. That the academics, for example, focus on all kinds of variables. Partly because
by academics, you mean professors of
right,
finance?
Yeah, the data's there.
In business school?
Sure, and the data's there. So they focus on whether if you buy stocks on Tuesday and sell them on Friday, you're better off, or if you buy them in election years and sell them in other years, you're better off, or if you buy small companies. There are all these variables because the data are there, and they've learned how to manipulate data. And as a friend of mine says, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And once you have these skills, you just are dying to utilize them in some way, but they aren't important. If I were being asked to participate in a business opportunity, would it make any difference to me whether I bought it on a Tuesday or a Saturday or an election year or something? It's not what a businessman thinks about in buying businesses. So why think about it when buying stocks? Because stocks are just pieces of businesses.
If you had to look over the next 5 or 10 years, What do you think will be good businesses?
The businesses that have some sort of a franchise to them. What makes a business a good business is when, if I go into a drugstore and I want a Hershey bar, they can't sell me an unmarked bar. You know, if I'm going to pay 35 cents for the Hershey bar, and they say, but wouldn't you like this wonderful unmarked chocolate bar for 30 cents? I buy the Hershey bar. And if they don't have it someplace, I'll go across the street to buy it. That's what makes a good business. I don't feel that way about the carton of milk I buy. I'll take whatever carton of milk is in the grocery store's freezer or cooler.
So it's the power of the franchise.
It's the power of the franchise.
When Ben Graham talked about these things, he talked about tangible assets, iron and steel above the ground, bricks and mortar. But you've expanded Ben Graham's idea to this idea of the franchise, haven't you?
I learned that subsequent to Ben. The principles of buying value and the margin of safety and the detachment from market, I learned from Ben. You might say that I learned the proper temperamental set from Ben. The stocks I buy are entirely different from what Ben would buy if he were alive today.
Do you do this for the money? What does money mean to you?
Well, money is a byproduct of doing something I like to do extremely well. I think if you found an athlete that was doing well, and my guess is that and I'm not comparing myself, but a Ted Williams or an Arnold Palmer or something, after they have enough to eat, they're not doing it for the money. And my guess is that if Ted Williams was getting the highest salary in baseball and he was batting .220, he would be unhappy. And if he was getting the lowest salary in baseball and batting .400, he'd be very happy. That's the way I feel about this job.
What do you feel like when you look at this piece of paper that gives you your net worth and it says you're worth over $1 billion?
It's a byproduct of doing things I like to do well. If I bat .400 long enough, in this business, you get a very big sum.
That is a big sum. What are you going to do with it?
Eventually, it's all going to go back to society. With very 99% plus of it's going to go to society. It should.
Do you ever really get a big hit just buying these predictable stocks?
Yeah, you do. But not very often. But occasionally, sensational businesses are given away. In the mid-'70s, the whole Washington Post company was selling for $80 million at a time when the properties were worth not less than $400 million. And no one would have argued with you about the properties being worth $400 million. And the price was there for all to see, but people just didn't feel very enthusiastic about the world then.
Old basketball players lose their legs. Do old investors lose their legs?
I don't think so. I think that they probably lose their legs, but they don't need their legs that much.
Yeah.
Really, being a sound investor really just requires a certain control of your temperament and the ability to know what you know and know what you don't know and occasionally act. And I don't see any reason why that goes with age.
When you think
I may give you an illustration in another few years, but so far it has no effect. I mean, in a sense, you keep accumulating a little more business knowledge as you go along, and that's a plus.
There's been a lot of talk about the Silicon Valley culture. Is there a Berkshire Hathaway culture?
I guess there's a Berkshire Hathaway culture, but it would be a long way from the Silicon Valley culture.
What is the Berkshire Hathaway culture?
We like managers who are in love with their business. We like them that feel like I do. I want to tap dance when I get to the office, and that's the sort of managers we have. And we have terrific luck where we buy businesses with managers that have been enormously successful over a period of time. They're usually rich after we buy the business, and they keep on working afterwards. We don't have so much luck with business school grads. We find it's difficult to teach a new dog old tricks, and we like the people that have been around a while.
Warren, you created a stir with your remarks about money and children. You have 3 children and grandchildren. You love your children, they love you, but you've said you're not going to give them any money because that would be a bad thing to do.
I hear children of the rich or the rich themselves talk about the debilitating effect of food stamps on welfare mothers, and they say it's terrible. You know, you hand them all these food stamps, and it causes the cycle to perpetuate itself. But of course, when a very rich child or one who's going to inherit a lot of money is born, when they leave the womb, they're handed this lifetime supply of food stamps. Only they have a welfare officer. He's called a trust department officer, and the food stamps are little stocks and bonds. And nobody seems to notice the debilitating effects of that particular form of lifetime supply of food stamps.
So
I think by and large that if I'm going to be a sprinter, I will become a better sprinter in life if I sprint against everybody else leaving the starting blocks at the same time than if they say, because I'm Jesse Owens' child or something, I get to start on the 50-yard line.